What's up, peeps? Welcome back to another episode of 5 Questions with Frank. And today I have with me Jonathan Palmar. He's the Chief Experience Officer at Shay Rowbottom Marketing. And he's a former wrestler, which I just found out about, and I can't wait to dig into more. John, what's up, my man? Thanks for being on the show.
I have to be honest, I'm a little bit starstruck right now. What a lot of people don't realize is before there was a Shay and Jon, before I started working with Shay Rowbottom Marketing, I actually discovered Frank's content first. And it really opened my eyes to the benefit of doing video content on LinkedIn. Traditionally, I didn't put those two things together, but I'm going to have a lot of fun talking to Frank about that and how he kind of influenced me on LinkedIn. But really happy to be here, happy to share some of the little secrets and magic tricks that we've learned along the way.
Awesome. Yes, we're going to dig into a lot. Mainly love to learn more about Jon, the person. You've been very open on LinkedIn and sharing some of your stories, sharing some of your background, which is awesome because a lot of people love to share the great stuff, which is cool. We all want to. I mean, life isn't all doom and gloom, but life is of course what we put out there, and perception, of course, social media. Sometimes people only want to share the good stuff. You've been this open book of sharing some dark sides of your life and some trying things that you went through. So appreciate that because I think it's really important because people can relate to a lot of the struggles that you've been through, but also what you've done since then and how you didn't let that defeat you, I think is an even more powerful message. So yeah, love to just open up by letting folks who may not know who you are yet. If you're living under a rock, Jon's putting out some killer content. He's grown his following up to 70,000 followers in a really short period of time. So just for those who might be seeing it for the first time, just give us the quick intro of Jon, who you are, what makes you tick.
Yeah. Like all of this is like living a dream. I definitely did not expect it. But now I can see how all of those challenging times and those moments where I really question myself, they all come together. So to give some background, as a kid, I was bullied a lot. I was made fun of. I was kind of like short. I was fat. I didn't really have a lot of confidence. But I remember as a kid being really inspired by professional wrestlers, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Hulk Hogan, The Rock. I would watch them and the confidence that they had, whether it was on the microphone or in the ring, on their stage, they just had such a presence. And I really strived to have that type of confidence. So after like a nice growth spurt, I jumped up to 6'2" and I put on some muscle. I decided that, I wanted to go after that dream. I wanted to be the one to inspire others the way that they inspired me. So I joined a wrestling school, and within 2 months of joining the wrestling school, I was on television. I did a couple of different stints. I was enhancement talent, so I got beat up a lot. But what it did more than anything else is it demonstrated to me that if you put in the work and if you believe in yourself and if you visualize that end goal and you just go after it, you can legitimately make your dreams come true. So of course, like anything else in life, it wasn't necessarily the right fit, but because I had seen that glimmer of hope, I knew what was possible. I started making some mistakes. So through those mistakes, inevitably, they actually let me go. And I was, basically at that moment homeless. I didn't have anywhere to turn to. I had just gone through a tough divorce, and basically mommy and daddy had to bail me out. They offered me a job as a forensic accountant, which, knowing me, that's almost like a death sentence. So I went back to school and I got my degree. I did all of the things that you're supposed to do, which it burned a hole in my stomach. But I knew that it's the way that society tells us to go. So I felt like I had put money and time into myself. It didn't work out. So now it's time to go with the proven method and just give up. So I did that for a few years. And then, just as fate always has it, I was scrolling on LinkedIn because my dad wanted to rebrand his forensic accounting agency after 20 years of doing no marketing. And I stumbled on one of Frank's videos, and I saw myself. I saw, somebody that was energetic, was having fun. It reminded me of those moments where I saw The Rock or, a performer that was really talented at their craft, but they were doing it on a different stage. So I reached out to Shay Rowbottom because I didn't think Frank would answer my message if I reached out to him. So I reached out to Shay, and then from there I joined her boot camp, and I had quick success. So she offered me a job, and basically the rest is history. I've been here ever since.
That is pretty awesome. First, the fact that you know you hit some tough times, you didn't let those tough times defeat you, and here you are today, kind of sharing that story. Appreciate the fact that I stopped you from scrolling there in the feed, and pretty cool. And I tell you, if we could have went back and you would have hit me up, I would have definitely helped you. But I think you went to the right person, because I too went through Shay's boot camp and learned a lot from Shay early on in my video game and all this stuff, doing some things here with LinkedIn. So awesome how you guys really connected, and now so you lead. You basically you lead the boot camp now. I mean, you're the guy. You not only seems like you're such a natural, and you've perfected the video space, and so presenting yourself so well and clearly, and obviously you have you're very well articulated. But were you always like that? Was this something that you were like, hey, I love being in front of the camera, or was this? I mean, I know you had your wrestling background, but just to jump, people think it's easy to throw a camera on and talk, and that's actually pretty hard. And then also to put content out for thousands of people to see it, not so easy. So how was that transition for you to making content?
Yeah, I think, and Frank, you can relate with this. The thing that people don't realize is, for those of us that have the gift of being extroverted, or have the ability to speak in front of an audience and do so in an effective way, typically, for any of us that have been in that situation, we feed off of the energy of the audience. We're paying attention to how people react and respond to certain things. But when you're recording a video for social media, you don't have the approval of the audience to know if you're going the right way or not. You're sitting in a room by yourself recording, and you're hoping that it turns out good. So it does prove to have its own challenges. And I remember in the very beginning, I was very uncertain of myself. I didn't know, should I be talking about this? Should I not be talking about that? How vulnerable should I get? The one thing that I recommend to most people, and the one lesson that I've learned, just from studying these individuals, the Gary Vaynerchuks, the Grant Cardones, a lot of the individuals that do have significant influence online, they did not lead with their personal stories. They led with value. They led with, sharing information that could be useful to someone. And then over time, they started sharing more about themselves, because at that point, they'd already built in an audience that cared about them. We have to sell ourselves first, but before we can sell ourselves, we have to sell, the value that we can bring to that audience. So I think it's something that's very important to remember. And it was important for me to always lead with that value, but it was not easy in the beginning, not knowing what to talk about, what to say. It takes time to develop it. It's like anything else. It really is a skill.
I love what you've done, because you have attracted quite an audience. The content you put out there gets a lot of attention. You're definitely bringing the education. I think people underestimate how much research you put into your videos and your content to come up with stuff, and to actually put value out there. It's like you're doing all this work. A 2.5, 3-minute video is taking you hours and hours to put together, to do the research behind. And what I enjoy a lot about your videos you just did one recently is you've confronted haters head on. It's like people, you were sharing some snippets of some stuff that people said to you. And it's like, I think if you're doing well, you're going to attract people who are going to hate on you for whatever reason, no matter what. But how you've handled that really helps other people who might be like, I can never, create content. I'm not going to put it out there. And all these fears that you have in your brain, where you're just like, I got him too. Jon gets haters, but here's how Jon deals with the haters. So I think your approach to that has been pretty inspiring, and I'm sure it's inspired others to say, hey, if people are going to hate on me, I want to continue to do this anyway, and I'm just going to ignore them and block them out. So definitely kudos to you doing that. Another thing that you've done, you have, because you mentioned it, I'd love to just unpack a little bit, because you bring a good point. I think if you would have came out, or anyone, I think if you come out onto an audience of people who don't know you and just start talking about, if I would have been like, hey, and this happened to me, and I was here, I lost my job, or I got divorced, or whatever, all these stories. If I started just throwing all these stories at strangers, they'd probably be like, you need therapy, pal. You don't need video. You need therapy. But what you did was you built an audience. You began to say, oh, you showed up. People start to know, like, and trust you, and then they're seeing you and paying attention to you. And you started sharing little snippets of your background, and now it's more of like, okay, they get to know Jon and bringing this value, but now they get to know Jon as more of a personal level, and you're relatable. And I think that even brings your community even tighter. So I know you went through a pretty nasty divorce, and I'm not sharing anything that putting you on the spot for, but you went through a divorce. You went through a period of homelessness, and you had to struggle with that. Is that, recovering from that, I can't imagine it was easy, but knowing that you put that, you've carried that and put that behind you, but now you share that. What are the expectations or the hopes of sharing that with other people? Is it to say, hey, if I did this, you can do it, or is it for you sort of like a release too, to say, whoever, the people that doubted me or hated on me back then, they didn't stop me from becoming who I am today?
I think that the most important, there's so much to it. Like, and there's always intent. It's never just, like, obviously something like that can generate attention, but there's also belief that, you do scale to the point where, people are invested enough to you that they want to hear what you have to say, regardless of the topic that you're going to cover. But what's powerful about a story like that was more the fact that, when you look at what LinkedIn is, it's different than Instagram and YouTube in the way that, on Instagram and YouTube, those platforms is very much about, like, you're watching a play, you're watching a production, and the people that, the characters that are portrayed on Instagram and YouTube, more often than not, tend to be the way that people wish that they were, the way they want to be perceived. They're acting, right? Where LinkedIn is more going backstage and wanting to see how the production works. They want to see the behind the scenes, So on LinkedIn, it's kind of like the opposite. It's more about showing people how to actually do it, as opposed to and sharing how you did it, in comparison to watching the play and watching the actors and cheering for those actors, their presentation. So that's the way that I've always portrayed it, and especially more now. So by taking people behind the scenes on my story, it's not about just me showing somebody how to write a script or how to use, a technique anymore. Now it's showing people, okay, how did I emotionally develop my skills to be able to, develop the message that I do now? Because all of those little micro situations that I went through, whether it's the homelessness or being shamed for being homeless by my ex-wife, all of those experiences were the step-by-step process that led me to where I am now, so that people can put the pieces together. But really it's about, there's somebody that's there today. And if I can inspire them to feel like, okay, maybe you're not homeless, but maybe you are struggling to find work right now. Or if you're going through a challenge with your partner, or maybe they did something really terrible to you, for those people, it's hope that they can come out of this experience so much bigger and empowered that they'll also be able to speak about it one day in past tense and look at how instrumental it was in their growth.
When we look at LinkedIn as a platform, because you summarize it, looking at Instagram and some of these other, TikTok and everything, it's more of, you see a lot of lopsidedness with followers. You're not really connecting with people. Like LinkedIn, right. You're making connections, and you can get a hell of a lot of connections. I mean, 30,000 people, first level connections are a lot of people to be connected, and then people choose to follow you, and you can go that and build that exponentially. You mentioned a word that I think is, you said characters. So yeah, there's a lot of characters out there. It's they put this, a costume on and they show up for their audience, and they're trying to put something out there because that's what they want to be seen as. And truth be told, keep it real. LinkedIn, there's some characters on LinkedIn too. I mean, that's going to happen.
Always.
But I feel like your approach, because you now work with so many people who and I've gotten to know some of them, the people that you work with directly, they're out there trying to either build a personal brand, build the brand's business, or some culmination of all of that. And how do you see the personal brand aspect and the business building and kind of relationship building with LinkedIn? It seems like that's where it's at. And how important is it to really show up on LinkedIn and create content, period, not just video? Because I think that's important. You don't just need to not everyone needs to be on video, but right. Showing up on LinkedIn, how important is that? And what's your opinion there?
So one of the reasons why I like video is I don't care who your favorite person is in society. I don't care where you come from, who you are, what industry you're in. The people that we feel the closest to emotionally that are not direct family or friends, these are people in society. Like, more often than not, we've seen them physically do an interview. We've seen them on television. We've seen them do a movie. And very early on in my process, I recognized that, if I want to be anything in this world, like I need to be comfortable being on camera to some degree. Even the most introverted, introverted like entrepreneurs, your Mark Zuckerbergs and Jeff Bezos understand the importance of still actually being on camera. It's inevitable. So I knew very early on that I needed to do video content. And then, in terms of why another reason why video is great is because you get the analytics. You can actually see, like, unlike a text or picture post, I can actually see how much of my target market is checking out my content. What areas and, around the world am I reaching the most? Like, are people from New York or Chicago watching my content more than anybody else? Okay, then I need to throw in some of those elements to basically say, like, hey, I'm here. I'm supportive of you specifically. So, the video content is paramount, but more than anything, I feel like there is something that is more important on LinkedIn, probably more than anything else, and that is connequity. Like, for me, that is connection equity. We need to build in depth the relationships with the community, because I feel like that community can make or break you. When I was starting out, I followed a 90-10 rule. I would lead 90% of my time with engaging with the community. I would literally find the biggest pages and always try to be the best comment on the biggest pages. And if I had the best comment, inherently, I would gain more followers. And then I would find a bunch of little pages, like a lot of individuals that were maybe just starting out. They didn't have a ton of content. They didn't have a bunch of likes and comments, because those people appreciated the fact that you remembered them and that you would engage in their content, even if they were just starting out. So I felt like, I would like and comment on 9 posts, and then I would upload my own. And the hope is that just if a couple of those people, liked and commented on my content, that if I liked and commented on their stuff, they would, return the favor. And then really it just became, rinse and repeat. And that's how I started to scale.
If you can give, maybe, I don't want to put a number on it, but let's just say, 3 pieces of advice that you would give to someone who is listening right now and who's been saying for a year, 6 months, 3 days that they're like, I need to get into this content strategy, but I don't know where to start. What are 3 tips? Someone says, hey, Jon, what's your advice? What's 3 things that you can share to someone today to really get them moving and towards some action?
Well, the first one is, and it's just like, it's too apparent. It's too obvious, but it's like, you can do it. Like, I literally started in 2020, in this same calendar year that we are in right now. I started. So if I could do it, you may not get the same results, but you will certainly be way better off than if you don't do it. Right. So it's very possible. Number 2 would be, let's see, what would be another piece of advice that I could give? Go find the stuff that you can't Google. Like, I think one of the biggest mistakes that I see on LinkedIn, especially now, is people will, you know, ask or answer questions that could easily be found on Google. If I can easily ask the question in Google, then I just don't feel like it's as impactful on the news feed. What is unique, what you can't find on Google is your own experiences, your own unique perspective on something. When I see like somebody tags a post or has an article linked to, Steve Jobs or, Elon Musk or whatever, I could just go straight to the source. It doesn't make it special if you're just highlighting what they already said. So, for me, it's really find those things that can't be Googled and focus your content and attention around that. And I feel like you'll be more impactful. And then the final one is, don't put pressure on yourself to develop content every single day. That's one thing that I struggled with in the beginning. And the modern convention was you have to, because Gary Vaynerchuk, we all love him, but we were told that you have to create as much content as possible. You have to post every day. And from the beginning, I told myself I wasn't going to do it because I knew that I couldn't stay committed to creating an effective message every single day. So I focused more on being intentional and bringing as much value as possible twice a week, as opposed to burning myself out because I don't have a team of people helping me trying to create it every day. I almost view it as like if you're sitting at a table with a bunch of executives that you respect, are you going to speak for the sake of speaking, or are you going to speak when you have something important to say? And I really feel like that is what makes the biggest difference.
Excellent advice, first of all, because that's the whole part of you can do it, that attitude. It's like, yay, just get out there and start. Yeah, everyone's like, sure, you have to start. Of course, you need to do something. Otherwise, you're just going to be in the background, not doing anything. But unless you have to believe in yourself that you can do it. And I think taking that first step and putting that content out there is important. I think the consistency piece, of course, is extremely important. The Google thing, I love the, you can't get it on Google because we underestimate. I feel like people that do stuff in and out day after day, we are subject matter experts in so much stuff, especially the things that we're doing on a day-to-day basis that other people are like, oh man, like I take stuff for granted that I do in my normal career. And I get on the phone, people are like, oh man, I never even knew that. Who knew? And these are things that, like you said, you can't just go easily find it. And this is how you can bring value to the audience. So I love if you can't find it on Google, it's a great piece of content to create because that makes total sense because now you become that expert and that authority there. And really, just looking at creating the content just to create content, I think is really important. Gary Vaynerchuk, in 2018, I met Gary V, and Gary V said, start creating content. And he's the reason why, and it took me several months, but it's the reason why I started creating content. And I put out, up until a few months ago, I was putting out five days a week. And before that, it was sometimes 7 days a week, content every day. And until recently, I did like a LinkedIn 10 tips in 10 days. And I did 10 pieces of content back to back. And after it, for the first time in 2 years of creating content, I was exhausted. And I was like, I can't do 5 pieces of content every day. So I started to take a step back and now I'm doing, sometimes I do 3 pieces. Sometimes I might only do 2. I think the pressure isn't on myself that I have to put out content. I think that's really important. So I love that you have said, hey, I'm going to put out a couple, pieces. And also it's really, if I feel like putting out 5 pieces of content on impulse, and most of my content is impulse, I will create a piece of video, get it, I'll get the editing, and then I'll release. So it's really a short window. I don't have an arsenal of content. I used to have like 5 videos backed up. So 3 awesome pieces of advice that I think a lot of people can learn from. And so I appreciate you sharing that. I'd love to take a few minutes here to just talk about, because I think it's really important, people who reach out to me and they're like, hey, how do I start? I try to give advice when I can. I'm not the expert in creating content. I do it and it's sort of like this, side gig that I have, but you've taken it and you've made a job out of it. And now you partnered up with Shay and putting this out. What's the boot camp? Who's it for? And what am I learning if I join the boot camp? Because honestly, I did it 2 years ago. Well, a year and a half. It's a year and a half ago, and it was awesome. It was a game changer for me. I was boot camp member number one. I think as soon as she put it out, I was signed up. So I'm sure things have evolved. The content game has changed, and now with you running it, what is someone getting? Who's the boot camp for, and what are they getting out of it?
I think that one of the hacks or cheat codes to why our content is so effective is because our target market is not a specific industry. Our target market is the entire platform. So, the people that we're trying to reach is everyone, because anyone can do this and anyone could benefit from it. So whenever somebody sees my content and says, well, it's performing really well, what's the magic behind it? Really, to me, the magic is that literally anybody could be our client. And anybody could take that advice and it benefits them. So I want to be brutally honest with that, because I do feel like sometimes we do have a little bit of an unfair advantage. But more than that, I would say that the boot camp it's an interesting experience. It's not called a boot camp for nothing. There is a lot of work. So I'm always really intrigued with the people that do reach out, the people that do want to do this, because you really are getting the elite of the elite. There are so many automated services, outbound services, so many easier ways to build your following. But I would not recommend one more than this one, because I do believe it's the most effective. But just understand that it does take a lot of work. The script writing, the filming, the posting content, the engaging. It does become a lot easier, but it's not necessarily the easiest approach. But when I look back on all the people that have gone through the program, the success stories, the individuals that have been able to fill up their calendars with business, there's not an approach that I think is more effective at this time. But yeah, it does take a lot of work. I'm not going to lie.
You bring up a good point that, I think that's really important. The boot camp, it really is a boot camp. And people, I've said that to people too. I'm like, you got to want it. It's not a done for you. They're not going to create scripts for you. They're not going to do the work for you. They're going to give you all the tools that you need to be successful, but you need to want to be successful, because there's people out there that, you want an automated thing that's going to get you kicked off LinkedIn, or some crazy bot that's going to send weird messages to people that have no clue about, who you even are. And then you get you reported, then take the shortcut. I think this isn't a shortcut like that. This is you can learn. And that's how I looked at this. Shay was doing some great things that I was like, okay, well, why not hire Shay to show me all the things that she knows, which she did. She shared so much, basically everything that she was successful. And now I've just expedited my journey to learn everything that she's done in these, 6 to 8 weeks. And now I'm way ahead of I could have never figured out all this stuff on my own. So I feel like, the boot camp piece, it is a boot camp. It's not done for you. And I think that, maybe people have to really want to do it, because the outcome is, and I've there's people that I did the first initial boot camp with. There's some people that don't make, they stop making content, whatever. And there's people out there still crushing content. Like Ben Azadi is, he is killing it. He's built a successful YouTube channel. He's got a great Instagram channel going. I mean, he's social everywhere, but you got to stay consistent too. And I think also love for you as we wrap up here, just talk a little bit about some of the metrics too, because I feel like the approach isn't to be viral either, even though people want to hate on Shay and think that, she's after all the vanity metrics. I think Shay is very clear in the boot camps. You want to target the people that you want to go after, those people. So if 50 people like those posts, and those are 50 people that are in an industry that you sell to, that's gold, and that's who you want to go after. So if we can just end on a little bit of your take on metrics and approach, and, you talked about connections and things like that, I feel like that's an important piece. I feel like that everyone thinks that if I put a video out and it doesn't get 100 likes or 1,000 views or whatever, then I've failed. And honestly, I think that's something that people need to understand isn't really true. So let's talk a little bit about Jon's thoughts on the metrics. That'd be great.
Yeah. We have a client, and if you send me a direct message, I'll share his page with anybody that wants it. But he only gets about 10 to 12 likes on each post. But of those 10 and 12, he always gains at least one client. So, it's not so much about getting those hundreds upon hundreds of likes and comments. Does it make the process easier? A little bit. I mean, like, let's just look at it how it is. If you're at a restaurant, if you're walking by a restaurant and you see a line out the door that's a mile long, it doesn't matter if you weren't in the mood for Italian food, you are intrigued and you kind of want to see what's going on in there. Why is this generating so much attention? Like, I want to see what it's all about. So the idea is, the more engagement you get, the more opportunities you create for somebody to be intrigued enough to take a look at it. But that's not to say that, it's necessary. It's far from it. The bigger thing is developing the messaging that demonstrates that you have authority. It garners a lot of attention, but I think that the style in which we present the content is far more important. For me, like, truth be told, I'm a little bit more introverted, which is great from like a creativity perspective, not so great from a sales perspective. I was not the kind of guy to go up to a woman at a bar and introduce myself and see if I could score a date with her. I was always kind of the guy that would sit back and hope that they came to me. Try to do what I could to draw the attention to myself so that I wouldn't have to do the reaching out. And a lot of that translates to LinkedIn. I am very uncomfortable with the sales process. So what LinkedIn has allowed me to do more than anything else is create a message where I do the pitching in the content through selling myself, so that when somebody does reach out, they are more often than not the type of clients that I want to work with, first and foremost, because they like the messaging. And I get a lot more yeses because they already know what I'm about and what I can promise them and what I can do for them, so that I don't have to deal with those awkward sales calls or introductions. It's basically all done for me. So if there was anything more impactful, it would be that. The fact that it removes it's a lot of work on the front end, but a lot less work on the back end. And if there's more I could do to prepare for the sale, then, the better off I am in the long run.
Well, I'll tell you this, and for anyone who's tuning in and listening and thinking about getting on that content journey, of course, from things I've said so far, I highly recommend joining the boot camp. I enjoyed it so much that Shay has the Elite Boot Camp, which is basically a monthly strategy meeting where some OGs get together and we have we just learn stuff. And for me, it was like, it's a cost, of course, but it's a cost that it's well worth it to me, because again, you and Shay are putting in the effort, you're doing the research, you're finding out what's working, what's not working, and doing all these great things. And then you have, of course, all these people you work with all this aggregate data that you get to share with us. So for me, it's like, I love creating content. This is fun for me. And I want to continue to do it, and I want to be my best at it too. So I feel like, I've stayed on as, in the boot camp in the Elite membership, but for people who want to join, I would say highly recommended. Cannot say it enough. And what do they do if they want to join? Someone wants to learn more. They should be following Jon for sure, and we'll link that. But they want to reach out to you because they want to start on their content journey, whether it's for their personal brand or their business. Where are they going?
Yeah, so they can just, click on my profile. Hopefully it'll be somewhere in the comments, and you can connect and we can start those conversations. We don't take on just anybody. We want to ensure that we work with the right individuals, that we see a spark, that we feel like, okay, I feel confident that with these strategies, you will be effective. We want to ensure that you get the value for the cost. So yeah, please connect with us, and we can start, identifying if it's a good fit and start the conversation.
Awesome. Yes. And I will link contact for your LinkedIn profile and everything. Of course, we'll get all that done in the show notes, and wherever we push this out, make sure people are connected with you and following with you. So Jon, thanks so much, man. I appreciate you coming on and sharing some stuff, and really appreciate the content that you're putting out on LinkedIn and opening up, just being vulnerable and showing us some new sides to not only you as the professional, but also the personal side. So thanks again, man.
And thank you, Frank, because if I didn't hop on your profile and check out your content, where would I be right now? Maybe I wouldn't be here at all. So, don't underestimate the the way that, those little acts that we do can really change somebody's life. So put it out there.
Cool, man. Appreciate it. Thanks again, man.
Thank you.